Great question. So I'll try to repeat the questions. Some of you guys may know this, but you should be outraged. Our government right now is sending upwards of $80 million a week to the Taliban. We're paying the Taliban right now a couple different pots of money. But look, at the end of the day, what can we do to stop that? Congress controls the purse strings. Like, period in the story. There's no reason why that money's still going to the Taliban. The second that was realized that we were doing that, that money should have been shut off immediately. Because obviously the Biden administration isn't going to do it, and I think we'd have to play hardball. If Biden's still not, or Kamala, whoever's running our government, we're not allowed to know that, but whoever's running that, I think Congress would have to say, hey, look, State Department, I mean, they just signed the Foreign and State Ops bill, the appropriations to fund the State Department. That shouldn't have happened. Until we knew that money was shut off, we should have just said, yeah, I'm sorry, until you can guarantee that we're not paying that money to the Taliban any longer, like, we're not going to fund your entire apparatus.
Congress do that?
That's Congress's main job. I mean, Congress, like, tries to do a whole bunch of stuff that, like, they probably shouldn't be doing, but if you read the Constitution, running the purse strings of the federal government, that's like Congress's main gig. They screw it up. They refuse to do it. They just run up massive amounts of debts and pay everybody from the Taliban to Mexican drug cartels to run more illegals into the country. But yeah.
Mr. Penn, what is your position, and how can you and us better support Israel in their fight for existence?
So the easiest way, this actually ties into like the Taliban. So when we're not sending money to the Taliban, we're sending money to the Iranians, who are funding Hamas, who are funding Hezbollah, who are funding the Houthis. So October 7th happened because Joe Biden came into office. He undid the Abraham's Accords by giving billions and billions of dollars to the Iranians. Never would have happened under Trump. That's not like Trump, talking and saying like, some crazy thing that he would have accomplished. No, that's 100% factual. The reason why October 7th happened is because we gave Iran access to billions of dollars. And Iran has been doing the same thing with money since 1979. If they get money, they fund their proxies, they conduct terrorist attacks. Like, as sure as the sun will rise in the morning, like that's what they do. I've got, from my last life in special operations and the intelligence community, I know quite a few guys that are in the Israeli special operations, and they will say whenever I talk to them, the one thing we need from America more than anything, more than more money, more than more weapons, is just stop funding Iran. And I mean, I could go on for hours about this, but it's absolute insanity. One of the votes that Perez took in Congress was to leave our troops deployed into Iraq and Syria. And those guys are being shot at right now by Iranian proxies that are funded through the Iraqi government that we also fund. So we're leaving them there as sitting ducks for the Iranians to shoot at whenever they have a bad day, like they had with the whole Hezbollah thing a couple days ago. And now they were under attack just yesterday. Our troops were, because we left them there, and they're being shot at by the Iraqi government that we fund. I mean, so there's a lot that we can do by simply cutting off the money. And then look, one of the biggest mistakes Israel made after October 7th was picking up the phone when America called. And I hate to say that as an American. They should have said, we're going to take care of our country, and we're not going to listen to America. Because we have been attempting to adjudicate block by block brutal urban combat, and it has been a disaster. And Biden's been funding every single side of it. So another key thing about Israel, right after October 7th, right after those attacks happened, Speaker Johnson, the House Republicans, did the right thing. They said, look, Israel needs assistance. They're under attack. They just lost, 16,000 of their citizens on one day? I mean, that's the equivalent of America losing, 1,500 or so of their civilians. That's the equivalent of us losing like 30 to 40,000 in one attack. And what they had, Hamas was holding Americans hostage. So the House Republicans said, we're going to give Israel some immediate support, but we're not going to deficit spend to do it. We're not going to print more money. We're going to take money that's already been allocated somewhere else in the government, and we're going to give that to Israel. Johnson said, you know what? Biden grew the IRS $14 billion. We're going to take that $14 billion from the IRS, and we're going to convert that into aid to Israel. And they did that right after the October 7th attacks. Marie Perez and every single Democrat voted against that. What they did then was for the next 6 months, they dragged their feet, and they tried to get one massive aid package that included money for Ukraine, $60 billion for Ukraine, and they held the Israeli aid money hostage while Americans were being held hostage. So don't let Marie Perez come back to the district and say, oh no, actually, I don't support Hamas. I'm not one of those Democrats. I support Israel. no, she drug her feet and she held the aid money hostage where we actually had Americans in harm's way. But again, the biggest issue is just funding Iran. We can cut that off. We can do that. That's actually